Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back to the ANEW Insight Podcast. We are back for the second half of our interview with award-winning writer, producer, and host of the Well Adjusting Podcast, Robin Hopkins. Robin gave us some really humorous insight into her path to create her Imperfectly Perfect podcast. We cannot wait to learn more. Welcome back, Robin.
Thank you.
Yay. So we are going to talk about your book, If These Ovaries Could Talk, the things we've learned about making an LGBTQ family. It shares powerful stories about modern family building. How did writing this book shape your perspective and resilience and personal growth?
You know, so the book came out of a podcast that I was doing at the time, called "If These Ovaries Could Talk." It's now since changed into kind of another podcast, but part of it was, obviously I had gone through this journey, not obviously, but I had gone through this journey of creating my family, and I gave birth to both the kids, and I used to have these I used to call them like they were like seminars in my living room where some lesbian couple would come over and I would run the blender with like frothy beverages with alcohol. And then they would be like, all right, we want to have a baby. And then I would walk them through how to do it. Like, it was just like, okay, so you're going to need a lawyer. You're going to need this kind of insurance. You're going to need to go here. How do you want to do it? You want to do it this way? So we would just do this whole chat, and, it became like kind of a thing. And then this friend wanted to start this podcast. I jumped in, and it was so moving. Like, I was less interested in saying like, oh, you did 4, IUIs or, IVF rounds or whatever, but I was more interested in the human story behind how you created your family. And so that, like, the book became, we had all the hundreds of interviews. So the book then became like a roadmap. Like, we laid it out like, okay, these are all the different ways that you can make an LGBTQ family, but these are the experiences. These are people's stories. And two people could have created their family in the exact same way, going to the exact same doctor, and have completely different experiences. But there was so many things along the way, financial struggles for people, emotional struggles when it didn't happen, trying to, talk about meditation and trying to be in the moment and like not put pressure on yourself, because then your rates or your chances go down, supposedly. It's like, just the whole journey was a personal growth experience, and it highlighted, and it's my favorite part about the book, it highlighted the intentionality with which LGBTQ folks create their families, and how, like, no kid is wanted more than what we have to walk through. It costs a lot of money. It takes a ton of planning. It takes sacrifice on people's parts. Like, my wife doesn't have any genetic tie to our children, and that's just the way it sorted out for us. But so that was a sacrifice. However, if you, like, my kids, they have all these traits that remind me of my wife, and there's no part of them that would ever think of her as not their full genetic parent. And to that extent, I had to use different donors for my 2 kids. So technically, they're not even 100% full siblings. And yet, you would never know that. And it's like, love makes our family. And so it was such a great experience to look back on all the interviews. Each chapter tells mine and the other host's personal journey around the topic and the chapter. And then there's clips from different guests, so that you just can hear all the fabric of our stories. And even just like being able to sit back and look at it as I told my story, my family story, I was like, oh, this is pretty freaking cool. Like, that the kids will get to see this, and that it exists in the world for people as a roadmap, as a a look back in history, because it's so much more common than it was when I started my family.
Is there anything that you had to overcome societally? Did you experience discrimination? And, we just had a change in administration. And are there
We did?
feelings? Are there feelings, Robin? And what are the
I have a lot of
feelings?
feelings. I'll be eating a Snickers bar over them later.
Mhm.
I'm just kidding.
Me too.
It, I so we live in a bubble. I live in Brooklyn, New York, so I'm quite lucky that it's an incredibly, welcoming community. So I don't feel like we've experienced real discrimination, and I think we've been very, very lucky in that regard. But I did have to overcome a lot of, um, you go through, or I, as a therapist, would make me say, I went through. Uh, don't speak for the greater you. Uh, you know, I had to become comfortable with my own internalized homophobia. Um, that was such a journey for me. And it's one thing to hide my sexuality. That's a choice that I can make that only harms me or benefits me, however, depending on whatever moment you're looking at. But if I don't model absolute pride in who I am and who our family is for my kids, what bag am I handing them? Like,
Mm.
you know what I mean? So it became really clear very early on that we had to be comfortable with it. And I wrote a story that was like featured in HuffPo called That's My Daddy. And I think it's on my Substack page if anybody wanted to read it, which is Robin Hopkins. I don't know, whatever. It'll probably be in the show notes or something. It's some Robin Hopkins Substack, whatever. So it was about when my daughter started going to um pre-K, or, to like an actual place. And she started walking up to men on the street and going, "That's my daddy." And we were like, oh, like, because the first time she did it, the guy was like, I mean, quite possibly homeless. And, and I was like, no, no, I was like, no, 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 those, you have two moms. And it's like, I always knew that would be something we would have to deal with, but I thought it would be like in middle school, like when they couldn't stand us for whatever reason. And it was like, as soon as she went into an environment where dads were coming, she noticed something was different. And so we ended up getting this book. It was like the most specific book in the history of man. It was like I had two moms, and a nice man donated, so that, it was like it was very like, really specific. And when she would do that, we would put it into rotation and we would read it to her. And then over the years, we would just expand on it. And we'd be like, "Oh, and another nice man, donated for your brother. And so you have different donors, and there's donor siblings. There's people that, that also share the same donor as you." So we would just expand on the story. And
Mm.
every time I noticed it helped me get comfortable. Like the
Mm.
talking, like, as I said in the first part of this conversation, like talking about things that I'm not comfortable, it was very hard for me. And so I just knew I had to keep saying it until I got comfortable with it. And now it's just like, I'm a lesbian. Can you pass the softball? It's just like, it just is what it is. And, and my kids are so comfortable too. And again, we're in a bubble. Might not be like that if we lived in Indiana, but, I choose not to live in Indiana for that very reason because of, no offense, Indiana, we love you. But just like, it's just not the bubble that New York is, and
Exactly.
you only have to, like you said, look at the administration for that.
Yeah, and I think, I'm in LA, you're in New York, we're definitely in luckier places for, people, any marginalized people,
Yes.
really.
Yes.
So I think, only time will tell what will come out of this administration, but I'm really hoping that um, on the other side, it leads us to more growth rather than less growth. I'll just leave it at that. Um,
We can only
but I
hope.
really I really love that you were telling stories to your children and you were using that book. And storytelling plays a huge role in your work. This is in your book, this is in your podcast. Why is it that sharing personal stories helps people feel more understood and more connected?
I think it's funny because I could give you a thread back to stand up. I was never an observational comic. I was a personal experience comic, so I was always telling stories from my personal experience, and most often I was like making fun of myself for doing something dumb. I had this whole bit about how I put my underwear on wrong for an entire day, and I just kept being like, "What is going on?" It was like some interesting material. But, I think that there's something about when people go, "Oh my god, that's me too." It's like that whole thing that everybody says on memes, like, "It me." Like, it's like the "it me" of it all is that's the great human connector, is
Mm,
to see yourself in someone else, and when they're laughing about it, that makes you feel less alone, and
mhm.
I think that's really important, and so we have always tried because there is I will say that there's a whole, donor conception, group out there that are unhappy and want to change regulations around sperm donation because oftentimes they weren't told. And it's like, and it was interesting because we had some conversations with them, with this one particular organization, and I said, "How many LGBTQ folks do you have represented on your board?" And they were like, "None." And I was like, "Interesting." And I said, "And how many of the people who are struggling were not told?" And they were like, "Most of them." And I was like, "Interesting." I was like, "We live in a very, I mean, we're forced to, because obviously one of these things is not like the other. Everyone's gonna say, "Well, where's the dad?" So we are forced to live this very open life, but I embraced it. And, me and my wife embraced it with our kids, and I think that has really helped them. I mean, I see differences in my 2 kids. Like, one is much more open, much more, like, cool with it, and I think likes being different, and the other does not, and I can see it, and all I can do for that child is try to put something into place to make them feel as comfortable as possible. But I don't think it's any different than if they were embarrassed because I'm older or chunky or, I dress badly. Like, it's like, they're gonna be embarrassed of you for something. They're teens. It's what they
Mhm.
do,
Yeah.
so, they're trying to, like, break off from you, so it's like, ugh, God, like, there's nothing that I can tell them that they don't already know, let me tell you. So so it's just like, I don't know, I think there's something in the storytelling and talking that just helps healing, it helps. I don't know, I just nothing in a vacuum, in my opinion, nothing in a vacuum, nothing hidden, nothing secret is ever helpful. At
Absolutely.
least in my experience.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think when you look at self-help culture, right?
Mhm,
I think it's really overwhelming or oftentimes even contradictory. Like when we were on your podcast, we were talking about a lot of the myths that come out of diet culture and
mhm.
the information that we receive on a daily basis often just leaves us just overwhelmed, confused, and stuck.
Yeah.
So, what's your advice for people who want to grow, but they have no idea where to start? Where should they not start? And where should they start?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is just start. Like,
Mm,
I think if you like, I often think start with the thing that you don't wanna do. Every time I've gone back to therapy, it's because when I would be walking in the neighborhood where my therapist's office was, I'd be like, "Wonder if I'm gonna run into Patricia." And I was like, and it was always like, "Oh, that's a very weird thought." And it would be my subconscious being like, Robin, maybe you should probably go talk about some of these things." So I think do the thing you don't wanna do, start, because I think just like anything else, um, once, at least for me, once I do one thing, the next thing is easier. So, if the thing is emailing a friend to say, "Do you who was that therapist you had that you loved? Would you give me a referral?" Like, one email can start something.
mhm,
So it's just start. Like, there's no way through it but through it. And the thing that is the worst feeling I can almost think of is when I'm actively going against my inner voice. There's it's so painful. It is so painful when something inside me is going, that this is a bad thing that you're about to do for yourself. You do actually want to go to the gym. And then no, and then I don't listen, and then I stay on the couch and eat some ice cream or late. It's like I will feel so bad about myself. And how much worse is that than had I just gone?
mm.
I
I
d I
love
did
it.
karate for a number of years, and I stopped. I was like almost a black belt, but I stopped like when I had my second kid because I was just like, I cannot right now. And but like Kaicho, who was the founder and the leader, he used to say, if you don't want to come, just pack your bag and show up. If you get all the way to the dojo and you still don't want to be here, then go home.
Mm.
But if you arrive and you want to do it, then come into the class. And I thought about that a lot. Just that idea of just like, I don't wanna, but I'm gonna.
Mhm. Well, I tell you, one of the greatest depression relievers is action.
Mhm.
And this is what
But
I
it's so
help
counterintuitive though.
totally
The
because
thing
you're
you
just
don't
it's
wanna do.
inertia.
Yes. And
Yeah,
that's why just one thing. Like
right.
it starts the ball rolling.
That's why I encourage people to do one thing but tiny.
Yes, yes,
One
yes.
thing that they can do that this is a little tiny step because once they feel the relief that comes from action, the depression relief especially that comes from action, they're motivated to do more. And if they reward themselves for just doing that little thing, that's what builds these newer lasting habits. And I love that you talk about listening to your inner voice.
Yeah.
I
It's never
really
steered me wrong, ever.
it never steers anyone wrong, and I
Yeah.
think we have grown up thinking we have to doubt this voice, or we've been told by somebody that we're wrong in this certain way, and we don't trust this voice. And I highly encourage everyone in my office and just everyone, period, that if you are just quiet enough to hear that voice, you would be shocked at what it actually says. And you would be inspired by what
Yes.
it says. You have to get quiet enough to listen to it. And that, comes from meditation, that can
Yeah.
come from just being mindful, it can just come from
It's a
just sitting
practice.
in a
It's a
room.
practice.
Yes.
Like, listening to
Yes.
yourself is a practice, and it's
Oh.
the more in tuned that I get with it, the more it shows up. The louder the
Mhm.
voice becomes, the more present it is, and the easier it is to listen to.
Mhm.
But you're right, small things is an important distinction because who hasn't been like, "It is the 1st of the year, I'm gonna lose 800 pounds, I'm gonna go to the
Of
gym
course.
every single day," and I'm always like, "Don't ever set up a goal where you're talking about go to the gym every day." That's not happening. It's not
Mhm.
happening for 99% of the people. So
Yeah.
why not set a goal where you go 2 to 3 times a week and you have a base minimum?
Mhm.
Just
Yep.
like even if you could only make it once this week, so be it. Next week you could try for
Exactly.
3.
Yeah. Well, I would say, even make it even smaller. Most
Yeah.
people think that they can like carve out a half an hour every day. And people can't. They have lives, they have kids, they got to shower sometime. And I think that like, creating the smallest amount, say it's exercise, the smallest amount that you can do every day or 5 days a week or however many you feel like is necessary for you to feel better, do that
Yeah.
because adding on, you can always do that. But if
Yeah.
you don't have the bandwidth and you're depressed or you can't, like you've had the worst week ever, if it's 10 minutes of exercise, even if it's 10 minutes of stretching,
Yep.
you can do that and you're
Absolutely.
going to feel better. And oftentimes it just leads to more. So I love that.
I
Let's
will
talk.
also say I
Oh,
wanna say one other thing too.
mhm.
I just wanna give a shout out for accountability partners, because I think that's also, like, creating community when you wanna do something. Like, again, one of my biggest learnings is not trying to do everything alone. Like, I'm
Mhm.
always like, "I got it, I can do it," but how much more can you do? Like, you can be exponentially bigger, better, more if you have support and if you're not
Mhm.
doing it alone. So I love an accountability partner. Like, I have one friend that I write with. We have a writing meeting every Wednesday at 9 a.m. We bullshit for about 15 minutes at the top of the meeting, and then we go, okay, and then we leave our cameras on, we mute the mic, and then we just write. And it's
Oh,
and
that's
it's an
great.
accountability thing. And her and I during COVID did exercise that way. We'd be like, okay, I'm on the I'm on the Peloton app. At 8:02, I'm hitting start, and we would both start, and then we would be texting each other throughout, like, the workouts, like, but I love an accountability partner just to
No,
help you.
yeah, I think that's brilliant. Let's talk about your interviews. You have had a very wide range of guests on Well Adjusting. Tell me about one conversation that maybe even completely changed the way that you think about self-improvement.
Hmm. I mean, I think like they're kind of like my kids, all the conversations, like they're all different and lovely and I love them all. Um, some some make me like grow in different ways. Like I can be pushy. I can be like miss something because I was hell bent on making a point, and so I have to really try to like tune into the people and be like, where are they? And so I'm always like searching their face to see, did I say too much? Did I, how's this landing? So it's like most of my learnings are about like about the individuals and the experience,
Mhm.
and rather than about growth in and of itself. But what I think is really interesting about that is there's whether it be podcasting or television or whatever, there's this idea sometimes that people have of like, we want to reach the most people possible. But I'll tell you what, those are always the worst shows ever.
Mm.
Because when you go broad and when you try to speak to everyone, you end up speaking to no one. And so
Mm.
every one of these conversations, I am just with that person in that moment being like, well, like let's see if what can we do? Like let's just get in here and just see what happens. And in that specificity of that one conversation, I think it makes it more accessible to more people. And I think it's a
Mm.
very counterintuitive experience, and I think that can help grow lots of people because
Mhm.
'cause think about it, how many times do people like I think sometimes people are drawn to group therapy because maybe they're not ready to say the thing, but they like hearing themselves in that person across the room, and they can nod and go, "Yep, yep, I feel like that." And sometimes that creates space or growth. So it's like there's something in all of this about the bigger picture of growth. And again, going back to what I think I said in the first part was about we're all in this together. And I think that creates growth.
Mhm. You parse growth out of each story, and each story has something universal to it.
Yes,
And do you think that the universal through line is that we're all struggling and we're all seeking some form of healing?
absolutely. I mean, I don't know that everybody is seeking healing, but I think we're all struggling. I think
Mhm.
there are many people in this world. I use my mom as a reference. Like I used to say, I still say she was too sensitive for this world. And this time around, she just couldn't get it. Like she just did the very best she could, but she couldn't get it. And I think there are some people who aren't going to get it this time around. And I'm not saying I believe in reincarnation, but who, I don't know, it seems like there's some old souls.
Mhm.
We'll never know till we're gone. So,
Mhm.
I don't worry too much about it. But I I do think that everybody's struggling. I just weird little story. There was the first day I dropped my daughter off at daycare. Gosh, it was like I was like coming out of maternity. I'm crying, whatever. And and I see this lady. No, I'm sorry. It wasn't the first day. It was like in that first year. And
Mm.
I'm in the elevator with this woman, and I'm exhausted, and I'm just ugh, and she kind of like gives that mom face. And I said, "Oh, some days you just can't wait till 7 o'clock." And she goes, "Yeah, I know that feeling." She goes, "I mean, I've never felt it, but I understand what you're saying." And I was like, "You bitch," because because I was just like, "That is, first of all, you are a bold faced liar." I don't believe that there is one parent on this planet that hasn't had a day where they just want their child to go to bed. It does not mean I don't love the absolute every cell in their being, but it does mean that I am at my limit and I'm tired and I want to go to bed.
Mhm.
And I thought at first I was just super mad. And then I was like, "Oh, I feel very sorry for this woman because this is a person who is so caught up in the perception of how she believes she's supposed to act as a mother or as a person that she couldn't even connect with me one on one to say, 'I know it's been a tough one, right?'" Like,
Mm.
so I do think there are some people that aren't up to it for whatever reason, whether it's unkindness or whether it's just they're shut down, or maybe they've just had so much trauma. I just don't know that my mom could. She just
Mm.
couldn't. And but I do think we're all messed up. And I think
Mhm.
it's so much better. Like, don't you feel less alone when you think about everybody being completely messed up?
Mhm.
It's part of the problem with social media is I love to put up stuff where my family, we look like idiots. I love that kind of a post. 1, it's funny, and our family motto is "You don't cut funny," but 2, it's real. Like, the perception of what people think I'm doing versus the reality, it's like it's all smoke and mirrors.
Mhm.
Everybody struggles, and that
Absolutely.
brings me comfort.
Me too. And, to go back to something that you brought up in the beginning, you have said that you've struggled with weight and
Yeah,
shape. And a
yeah.
lot of people who listen to this or who come to my therapy, they also struggle. What is one thing that you can impart on them as they are going through this, journey and this struggle? What have you learned that's helped you navigate and cope with difficulties with eating?
Well, I think, like, they're just feelings, they're not gonna hurt me, and I'll probably be struggling with that for a lifetime, that I don't need to eat over them. Um, but that I it's an area that I'm gonna get help in. Like, it's like when I'm struggling, I call into an OA meeting. I just know this is a fight for me, and I just know that there's something in me that this is I don't know why, I don't know, I wish it weren't the case, but it is, and so I would just say, "No, you're not alone." And I try very hard to be thankful of my body rather than ashamed of it or mad at myself because of, maybe I didn't treat it the best and now there's some stretch marks or there's the this or there's the that, or maybe I'm at a point where I'm a little heavier than I feel comfortable with. Like I try to love my body as best I can, and I I'd be lying if I said I mean, it's like baseball, like, maybe I got a 300 average, but, like, is that better? It's better than a 200. So it's like finding the wins,
I know
and
nothing about baseball, so I'm like, "Mm."
3 out of 10. The 3 out of 10 is like a good batting average, 300 for some reason, but it's like, you only hit 3. It just seems weird. But, like, sometimes I can only love my body 3 out of 10 days, but it's like, I don't know, it's maybe it used to be 1. So just I think it's important for people who struggle to know you're not alone, that, eh, I don't think you should be ashamed. I think it is a to your earlier point, there's so much phobia on the internet. There's so much like, why can't you just help yourself and just be why don't you just get a little discipline? It is not that. For many of us out here, it is not that. And I don't want anyone to ever think that. So it's like find a space, find people who you can talk to. They will tell you you're not broken because what I can say is is that voice, that energy does not help me any it does not help me in any way. But when I can put
Yes.
people around me that it's like a positive thing of like just what's the next right action? And for me,
Yes.
sometimes it's like I just have to like sometimes I might gonna have to white knuckle it,
Mhm.
but it is what it is.
I adore your humanity. I really
Oh,
do. You're all about community. You're about how the stories that we tell unite us. You are also about really being kind and giving yourself grace, especially when you're struggling, and that we are all in that same boat. And if we can be open and honest about that, and reach out to each other, then we can help pull each
yes,
other up through
absolutely.
this. And that's what you
Absolutely.
provide on your podcast. And that's what you give to so many people. And I think that the world is a better place for that. On top of that, you're freaking funny. And
Oh, stop.
so you're
Thank
like
you.
the full package. So
Ah, well, thank
we
you.
will have all of the ways to, listen to, read Robin, just everybody go to Robin, please, because this is really just powerful stuff. And I think that she helps tie us all together as humans. So, Robin, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I'm
Oh,
really, really honored to have you here.
please, I was honored to be invited, and I love what you're doing. It's like, the more we can all be out here, like, s preaching to the choir, I think that's what we gotta do. So
Exactly.
I'm so thankful, and I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing because it's fantastic.
Well, thanks, Robin. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. I really hope you come back for the next exciting interview, and I will see you next time. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight Podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.